to make these sessions interactive. Put into the chat what's one beautiful thing you've noticed recently. Just bring your attention to something beautiful that you've noticed, something that happened. My story for you is that my daughter just turned 14, and I was driving her and her friends around, and they literally could not stop giggling. And I know, teenagers get kind of a bad rap, but they just could not stop giggling. And it was the most beautiful thing to just hear them laugh. And it was shrill and it was hurt my ears, but it was also beautiful. So if you have anything that you can focus on in that beauty, pop it into the chat. Would love to know what something beautiful is in your life. And in the meantime, I'll talk about what I do. I'm a mindfulness coach and a meditation guide. And really, what that boils down to at the beginning is self-awareness. So, becoming aware of your thoughts, your feelings, and what it feels like in this body is what we're really after. And today, specifically, what we're going to be talking about is living an aligned life. So, and what I'm really going to ask of you, invite you to do today is to be thinking about and be working with how you're aligning what you think and what you feel. So we want to get your heart and your mind aligned, because when we align what we think and what we feel, then we actually get what we want in this life. And when we're not in sync, then, we might get some of it, but it's a little harder and we're a little bit more off. So today, I want to bring that attention to the heart, because so much of our lives is about what's happening in our minds. And so that's really, we're going to bring both of those together. And I know that we're going to do a values exercise today. And I know that you've all done values exercises before. They're all over the place, right? If you've done any kind of training, then you've done a leadership exercise. And so today I just want you to bring your curiosity, be teachable, pretend for just this half an hour that you don't know your values. Just for a few minutes, let yourself play in this world of this exercise and let it be new to you again today. I wanted to give you this quote. I think it sums up why value-based living is so important. It's from Richard Barrett. And he says, values-based decision making allows you to create a future that resonates deeply with who you are. It creates the conditions that allow authenticity and integrity to flourish. So living in alignment is about identifying your values, but also about living them. And your values are really who we believe we are, right? What it is to be each of us as humans. They're unique to each of us. And the reality is, when we're aligned, when our heart and our mind are together, we feel better, we have more energy, we feel inspired, we spend less time in fight and flight and more time in creativity and inspiration. And that helps us create the momentum to create a life that is what we want in this life. So I am going to take you through this values exercise, and I'm going to pop a document into the chat. So if you want to, you can look at my screen. I'm going to share it. But if you also want to click that link, then you can have it on your own screen and just be looking at it that way. You can also print it from there if that makes it easier for you. Okay, so as we get into this exercise, as you pull up that document, what I want you to remember, what I invite you to do, is that there's no shoulds in your values. These are things that are just for you. And so this isn't about what your mom would value or what your boss would value or what you think you should say. It's really just what is important to you and how who you are and how you want to identify these values. And for today, I just want to remind you to be curious, right? These don't have to be the values that become permanent for you. They can be just a start. So with that, let me see if I can pull these up. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this. I got this values exercise from a course called The Brain Game, and it was created by Matt and Joy Kahn. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at group number one and all of these values. And what I want you to do for each of these groups actually is select one or two of these words that represent who you are, what you value from each group. So in group number one, you're going to select one or two. In group number two, you're going to select one or two. And in group number three, there are 8 groups total. So you're going to have to put in the chat when you're done with this screen, and I'll bring up the next 3 groups. So just let me know in the chat when you're ready. And if you have any questions, by all means, let me know. But you are looking for 1 to 2 in each group. If you want to do 3 or 4, that's against the rules. Do 1 or 2. All right, we've got several people saying they're in. They've got these pieces. Fantastic. Just give one more moment. And you can share your values like you are, which is wonderful. I love these. I love knowing more about who you are. And you can just tell me that you're ready to if you don't want to share them. And for those of you who have completed this one, if you want to pull up that link and move on to 4, 5, and 6, you can. That's where we're headed next. All right, I'll move us to 4, 5, and 6. So same rules, 1 or 2 from each group. Let me know when you're ready to move on. You're doing great. Lots of beautiful values in these groups. Which ones speak to you? Okay, we've got some more values here: patience, strength, commitment, fun, playfulness. Love it. All right, I'll give it one more pause here. And then we'll move on to 7 and 8. You can on your sheet if you want to move on without me. That works. Okay. I'll move us on to 7 and 8. So 7 is the same as the first 6, just with different words. So what you would pick here is 1 or 2 again. And then group number 8 is if there's something here or something that you value that isn't here. So if there's something that hasn't been named that you're like, oh, that's who I am, that is really me, then make that your 1 or 2 for group 8. And you don't have to have one of those. This might be a little faster because there's really just one group. So let me know when you're ready. All right. So in the chat, it says, there are many I wish I was. So that's something to just notice, right? Are there some here that you feel like you should be? And, really, if there's something behind that. And maybe it's pretty amazing who you are. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this and come on back to you all. Just hitting that chat quick. Okay, so now what I want you to do, there's a second sheet in that link. And so you should have between 7 and 14 words probably from the 1 to 7 groups that we had. And what I want you to do is narrow those down to your top 5 values. So you're taking all of the ones that you selected from our first groups, and you're selecting the ones that you value more than the others in your life, and just 5 of them this time. And then again, just let me know when you've got that part completed. I'm going to add the link in again, just in case anybody joined after I shared it. Sorry about that. If you don't have this, you can join along with us. And then let me know when you've got your 5. We're looking for your top values. All right, Alice, that's awesome. We're getting some down to our top 5. Okay. So now that you've got 5, I actually want you to bring those down to your top 3. So see which of those 5 speak to you more than the others. So you can compare one against the other and see which one you're more drawn to than maybe the 4th and 5th ones. You're just bringing it down to your top 3. So we're moving from this huge list of possible values down to 7 or 10, down to 5, and now down to 3. You're doing great. joking around in chat about what we really are capable of. Oh, that's funny. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and assume you're down to three, each of you. And the reason we get down to three is because there's one thing between knowing your values, and it's another thing between living your values. And both are important. So, what I want you to do is keep these three words, these three values, top of mind. I want you to put them where you're going to see them, whether that's your refrigerator or your monitor screen or your car or wherever, right? You can, if you don't feel like you got your ones that really speak to you, you can go back and do this exercise again and get down to the same three or the different three. It's okay if they kind of move in and out over the next week or so as you really kind of settle into committing to these values. But what's really important then is that they become top of mind. You have to see them every day to be able to live them. So what I do is I put a phone reminder that every time I arrive home, it reminds me of my values. And so you can put in something like that. We have all kinds of technology to remind us of how this goes. And so I encourage you to try some of those pieces. Okay, so I want you to be, what did you notice during this? You could write this down or you could share it in chat. Like, what surprised you? Um, I would say that when I did this exercise, what I noticed is that um, my values kind of rolled up into what became my top three values. So my top three values are love, peace, and joy. And I started out with things like community. And what I decided was, oh, community kind of fits in love and peace. And so, that can kind of happen. And what was coming up for some people, right, is like, do I really live this value or is this just something that I think I am? So pieces like that can come through as you really dig into your values and commit to them. So if anybody wants to share what they noticed, please do. And there's one last piece on this exercise, and that is this is a little bit more challenging. It's to look at where you're compromising your values. So your assignment, right, your homework for this week is to really check in. Which of your top values are you in alignment with your family? Right? So where are you really strong when it comes to your family and those values? Are you living in alignment? And are there any of your top values that you compromise regularly with your family? So something for you to consider. How does that work out for you? That's family for me is one of the hardest parts where for me to really hold my values because I have some belief systems that say like, oh, it doesn't really matter what I believe. I should just make it easy for everyone else. So really there are things that can pop up that you'll notice as you really start to live an aligned life and where you start to compromise. So there's several other categories here. One is friends. So which of your top values are in alignment with your friends, right? Do you use reason and patience with your friends or looking for reliability? Do you show up in commitment or strength? Or are there some that you compromise regularly? And it's just about getting curious and noticing where you compromise. So there are several other categories. Career is another one. Another tricky place for me is in the career space. And then finances, right? Do you bring fun? If fun is one of your values, do you bring it to your finances? I think that would be pretty awesome if you did. And how about your health? That's the next category. So, where do you tend to bring these values into your health? Or do you compromise it for your health? You're getting the idea. And the last one on that sheet is about relationships. So, and I think it's just kind of, maybe an all-consuming category rather than specifically family or friends, something a different way for you to take a look at that. Now, the reason that it's important to look at where we compromise is because every time we compromise our values, it actually creates an energy sink. It takes a lot of our energy to not live in alignment with what we believe is our values and who we are. And so it also creates drama. You might end up feeling like the victim in your relationships. You might end up in, right, where you're resentful or jealous or feeling guilty in these relationships. And so, really, your drama creates fight or flight in our systems. It creates all kinds of things for our bodies to deal with and our minds to work through. When if we choose to live in alignment, all of that goes away. So, what I'm really encouraging you to do is sometimes it is hard to make the choice to live in alignment in the short term, right? I was giving the example of I often acquiesce to my family's needs instead of speaking up for my own. And in that moment, that short-term solution might seem easier. But actually, in the long term, repeatedly compromising these values in all different areas of your life is what creates the burnout and the exhaustion and the conflict and the resentment. And so I want to invite you to kind of push yourself through that first part of unease to be able to speak and live your values so that you can have a much more comfortable existence, having just made it through that little bit of uncomfortableness to be able to live your values. Because in the long term, that's what creates a life worth living and a life you love. That's what a life aligned is. And so you get to ask your question, are you worth living in alignment? And yes, you are. We are. We all are worth living in alignment. So I want to wrap up today. We're doing half an hour Mindful Mondays now. First, I'm going to put my information in the chat so you can find me in all the places you can find me. And then I also teach on Fuel. There's courses there that talk about how to, create a meditation practice and become more mindful. So all those links will take you there. And then as you take a look at those, what I want to do is just end with a short meditation, just bringing us into this mind and heart aligned space. So when you're ready, I want you to close your eyes and find your body. I know that's a funny thing to say, but just notice, where are your fingertips? Where are your toes? What's happening with your breathing? Notice your central nervous system. Maybe there's an opportunity to bring in some relaxation into this body. Just imagine that you could bring that relaxation here, following it with your breath, your inhale and your exhale. Fantastic. Just saying hello to the body. When was the last time you did that? And then I want you to put your hand on your heart, bringing your attention to this heart space. So much of our brain gets our attention. What if you bring your attention to the heart? And just noticing what's here. It could be an emotion, it could be a connection to one of those values. See if you can remember your top 3 values and Whisper them in your heart. See how they feel. See what resonance you can create with those values in this place. And then I want you to imagine that you could put your brain in your heart, and it could be held there and supported by your heart, by this place of full acceptance. And see if that can deepen your sense of relaxation. Just imagining that your brain plops right down into your heart. And letting your brain also have these values. See if you can remember your three. Repeating them to yourself again. Just noticing how that feels, that alignment. Being able to commit to three values that really speak to who you are and what you're about in this life. Let it feel really good. And then consider setting an intention to commit to these values, that you might live them, to let go of any attachment to drama and compromise, reminding yourself that you matter and your values are what matter to you. Consider being really happy with yourself that you decided to come to Mindful Monday today. And remember who you are and what you stand for. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and stretch your body. Oh, I'm so excited for you. This is going to create wonderful momentum in the direction that you're choosing. So it's always a beautiful exercise to do. If you want to do it again, just use that link and follow your way through. Know that I am incredibly grateful for those of you who choose to live an aligned life because it makes our world a better place. So thank you for being a part of Mindful Monday today. I hope you will come next week. Alex DeBag will be here talking more about alignment and what she's up to. And then we'll start a whole new gratitude series in November. So hopefully you'll come back next time and bring a friend, bring your team. We want to see more of you. Have a great week.